Care package inbound.
Hello everybody, it's AJ here for the Mighty Gluestick. I'm going to be taking a slight break from making monster video. Well, this is a monster video, but it's not a monster video. I'm going to be taking a break from talking about dragons, and I'm going to introduce the idea of using a green Slaad as a Time Lord. So basically making a green Slaad into a Doctor Who type character. This is something I'm doing for my current campaign, so I've had to wait until this time of day where nobody else is around to hear it, because one of the players of the game is usually close by and can overhear things that I'm making on my videos. So, how, why, and how is it supported in the books? Well, the how is pretty simple. Green Slaad are shapeshifters. They can change forms. It's described in the books that they gradually change during their life into grey Slaads, and the grey Slaads turn into death Slaads by eating the body of another death Slaad or grey Slaad. But the idea that they develop over their lifespan, and in that, because they're shapeshifters, they're beings of chaos, and they develop slowly over time, and it's not really listed how long they live, so they could live for 600, 700 years. I thought, well, that fits a Time Lord quite well. They're beings from chaos, limbo, and they spawn sort of into existence originally. So the history in the books of how the Slaad came to be is Primus, kind of the god of Mechanus, the ordered dimension that sort of is involved in a huge galactic pan-dimensional calculation of some kind, that drives time sort of forward and makes everything click and reactions take place and stuff. Primus took a massive big stone, a perfectly ordered stone, and he put it in limbo to stabilize limbo, but the net effect was it created the Slaad species, which spawned and generated from the chaos of limbo. So they are beings of both order and chaos. They're ordered in that they're an actual life form that has some sort of semblance of normality to them. They have, you know, the regular amount of limbs and stuff, and they actually reproduce and carry on in the same sort of cohesive way. But they're beings of chaos at the same time, so their methods and behaviours are incomprehensible to people who are from either the material plane. The stuff they do is just sort of crazy. Now, if you look at Doctor Who, he's a being of order from the Time Lords, and the Time Lords are very ordered and like, our way is right and everything, but he's a rebel and he's chaotic, and he always is drawn to where chaos is happening the most. So any sort of conflict and stuff draws the Doctor in. I mean, he never just appears during a peaceful place, or if he appears and it is peaceful, things go wrong very quickly. And of course, that's the plot of the whole TV series. But if you looked at him like an actual being and he wasn't in a TV series, it's kind of weird behavior, and it's like his nature is chaos and he's drawn to it, right? So could a Slaad be. Now, green Slaad aren't necessarily evil. They are just chaotic like that. So they could actually have good intentions in what they do. So if you think of a green Slaad that he's shapeshifted so many times and has stayed in humanoid form so many times that at one point he got killed, he came back and he shapeshifted into a new person. And every time he gets knocked out and shapeshifts again, outside of his will, he snaps out of it. It's got some sort of a healing process, and he changes shape into a new face. He's a new Doctor every time. So he has this regeneration thing. It works perfectly fine. Why not? Supported by the rules, kind of. So where does the TARDIS come in? Now here's the really cool thing, right? So you've got the plane of limbo is morphic by divine will. And imagine that the stone, the spawning stone that Primus created, this object of perfect order, has a boundary where its perfect order and will sort of intersects with the chaos of limbo and creates this out of phase event horizon. Now imagine that the Slaad, who are of the spawning stone and there, kind of came into existence from this point here of ultimate potential, and they use it like a a device, right? So let's say they build devices all around this event horizon, just sort of touching on it, and it basically forms doorways from anywhere in space and time. Now each doorway is in effect the exit entry door of the TARDIS box. So they build a space on the outside of that in the chaos of limbo, and they will it morphically to be bigger than the actual space of the door. And because there's an infinite amount of doors all around, well, I guess there's a finite amount, but there's an infinite amount of times and places that they could be, all these spaces don't sort of interact with each other. So there it is. I mean, when you enter the TARDIS, you're entering the plane of limbo in a demi-plane, which is a bounded space supported by the will of the Slaad that created it, or perhaps the will of all the Slaad, or even just the will of Primus and the stone. And the Slaad are drawn to places of chaos, and they resolve them somehow, and thereby create more order, a net order in the universe. Therefore, Primus's goal of creating more order everywhere actually happens, because he used limbo to enact order everywhere throughout time and space, which is mind-blowing, and it just sort of it fits the idea of a being that has calculated the entirety of time, space, and creation, which is what Primus is involved in doing. And it also explains why other beings would say, why on earth would Primus do that and create the race of Slaad? They just seem to be chaos incarnate, not realizing that the full effect of that is to actually create more order in the universe. Anyway, so that's Slaad for you. And in my recent campaign, just this week in fact, I had a character. They were fighting up a bunch of troglodytes in an underground area, and the troglodytes were existing around an open dimension doorway to the far realm, which was going to open up wide and flood reality with craziness. And the troglodyte was infected with a Slaad tadpole, and when they killed the troglodyte, the tadpole came out. One of the characters chased after it, slapped it with her axe, and it lobbed onto it like the blob, and then went down onto her hand, injected eggs, 6 eggs, into her bloodstream. Now, at the time, her character was involuntarily invisible, so she could see the eggs lodged inside her like they were floating around in space, right? Because her body's invisible. And then the wizard came up and he started shocking her with shocking grasp and stuff in order to kill the eggs on the inside of her. And she's like, do it, do it! And then they became immune to the... killed off 2 of them, and then they became immune to electricity. So then he was like lancing her with cold and freezing her on the inside, and killed another couple of eggs. And in the end, there was 1 egg left. They finally figured out that they could turn her into gaseous form, and the egg dropped to the ground. They slammed it, it punctured the egg. The egg then used its stored up magical energy from all these attacks, went woof, and created a portal, and woof, back into the plane of limbo. Whereupon it is its will grew it to adult size, and it's hatched, but it still recalls in a certain way where it came from, and it's drawn back to its mother. And it's a time-traveling green Slaad, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. They've already met this green Slaad character in the game, but they didn't interact with him. They just saw him there and thought, he's a bit weird and out of place. I wonder why the DM's mentioning that guy. He was this zany sort of, trench coat wearing guy, and he acted just like the Doctor from Doctor Who. He's like, blah, blah, blah. And then off he goes and does other strange stuff. And he's like, it's not... I can't see you yet. And then he goes off again. They're like, what do you mean, yet? It's like, can he see the future? Well, maybe, I don't know. Of course, I know full well that this whole plot is unfolding. So the foreshadowing of this was light and fluffy and wasn't very disruptive. And that sort of set the whole tone. And that's all you really need. Just introduce the idea of a time traveller earlier on in the game, and it either resolves itself into the situation where they meet the time traveller proper and reveal that they've met him before, or it doesn't. It's a forgettable sort of thing. So if it turns out that the game doesn't really need time travel later, then you can just forget about it, and it's just a zany character that they met on the side of the road. Otherwise, it gives you that really cool moment as a player going, oh my god, we did meet this guy before in the campaign. Wow, you're so clever. and it's all planned, right? But really it's quite easy. It's just a mention, and then some sort of interaction that involves threatening the characters, and then meeting this thing which is going to be either a great boon or a great threat. So the time traveling offspring can either be their arch enemy or an ally that they meet later on, or maybe a bit of both. Maybe his overall goal is to let the portal open and destroy this area of thing or whatever. But from my idea, he's actually an ally which is drawn back to this place of chaos in order to help these guys, much like the Doctor Who character pops in out of nowhere, spouts some jargon about, you know, have I met you before, or you all look the same to me, etc., and then goes on and helps them, and they all get frustrated because he seems to know more than he does, that he's letting on. And yeah, so that's the idea. Now that's one way that you can use a green Slaad in your game. Or you can just use them as monsters of chaos that show up and croak and gibber and try to infect them with their offspring and become parasitic, nasty tadpole things that try and kill them. That's fine either way, but that's just one example of how I can take a monster like a green Slaad, the ideas that they have in the DMG for Primus's activity and why the spawning stone exists, put a little 2 and 2 together, combine it with a popular TV trope, and come up with a really crazy plot that involves a lot of time travel. Now, time travel in your game, because I promised to talk about how you actually work this without breaking your campaign. To avoid paradox in your game so that you can't come back and kill the person who invented the time travel machine, etc., all time travel takes you to an alternate universe. And this is kind of supported in a way by physics, but man, I'm not going to talk about it. That you can't go back in time in our existing universe because it would involve taking every piece of matter in the universe and putting it back where it was before, which requires an infinite amount of energy. So it's impossible. What you could do is go to an alternate universe, side by side, a parallel dimension, where everything happened a little bit earlier or a little bit later. That's perfectly fine. So in theory, there's an infinite amount of parallel dimensions where every decision involves crossing, and things could go one way or the other. So that's the infinite worlds theory, and that's how you handle it in a role-playing game. Time travel is actually a parallel dimension. So in every dimension every time you time travel, you go back and forth, you will meet yourself, a version of yourself that is already there. Interacting with that self is not disruptive to either one. They are an entirely different extra-dimensional entity. They're exactly the same as you in every way apart from the time. But and also, this makes sense when you think that D&D inherently involves travel to alternate dimensions. So really what you're doing is you're saying that there's the Feywild, there's the Shadow Realm, there's the Shadowfell, there's Limbo, there's the ethereal world, there's all of the positive or negative philosophical heavenly or hellish planes, there's the elemental planes, and there's also alternate material worlds, main material reality. So the prime material plane is not just the only plane, there are multiple worlds as well. So you could say that Corvair and Faerun and all of the other worlds that D&D take place on are the same world, just in alternate universes. So you could cross over easily from one to the other. Yeah, without disrupting anything, or and in each one you're going to meet a version of your own character. So that's kind of fun, and that's how I handle it. So yeah, easy.